everyone. Welcome back to the School of Civil Happiness for the seminar on families, human flourishing, and public happiness. My name is Loredana Persampieri, and I'm one of the members of the team of the Policies and Happiness Village. I would like to thank our village participants who are on Zoom and the Economy of Francesco community and the people following on YouTube. Some technical instructions before we start. For the people who are on Zoom, except for the speakers, of course, please remember to turn off your cameras and mute your microphones during the webinar. Discussants can turn them on when I will give them the floor. It's my great pleasure to have with us today two amazing speakers, Monsignor Domenico Sorrentino, Archbishop of Assisi and President of the Economy of Francesco Organizing Committee, and Dr. Dalia De Rosa, Research Officer at the Ministry of Economy and Finance. So after our wonderful guests, a Q&A session will follow with three incredible discussants from the Policies and Happiness Village. We will have Cesare Vergori from Italy, Maria Jose Flores from Argentina, and Bernd Appelhans from Germany. For the public, please write down your questions in the Zoom chat, and our discussants will be collecting and reading them in the last part of this webinar. And now I will come to my short introduction on the topic we will discuss today. This seminar falls in the second topic of reflection on oeconomics, the family, and integral ecology, launched by the Policies and Happiness Village earlier this week. In this context, our speakers will explore and develop insights, taking into account that the Catholic Church and empirical evidence from social sciences have shown us that family is the elective place where the human person is born, grows, and blossoms. But why should we talk about the family at the Economy of Francesco? The Christian thought in the realm of personalism has developed and highlighted the centrality of personhood and of the dignity of the human being as a person. It has also stressed the role of the family for the development of an integral ecology. What distinguishes the concept of personhood from one of the individual is inter alia, its relational dimension. And the family is the primary dimension where relations develop and blossom. Individualism, the idea that we are atomistic individuals, accomplished and self-subsisting entities, leads us to a misleading notion of freedom. According to this notion, to be free, one must be able to untie oneself from people, in the sense that I am all the freer the more I can untie myself. In this perspective, the other is seen as a limit to my self-fulfillment. This cultural approach has now shown all its weaknesses. In the long run, we realize we are no longer free, but more alone and more vulnerable, as the COVID crisis has been teaching us. But another reason for dealing with family is grounded in the original meaning of the word economy, referring to the good policies that govern the family life. So going back to its original meaning may help us to meet the Economy of Francesco goal of making the economy a place where we take care of our common home, instead of its common understanding of being a tool for the search of wealth accumulation in the mere pursuit of individual self-interest. Pope Francis and his predecessors have constantly put the family at the heart of their pastoral and theological activities in several encyclical documents, just to name a few: Humanae Vitae, Familiaris Consortio, Evangelium Vitae, and Amoris Laetitia. In the apostolic exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, Pope Francis pointed out his concern for the many challenges families are facing nowadays. In his words, the family is experiencing a profound cultural crisis. The weakening of family bonds is particularly serious because the family is the fundamental cell of society. It is where we learn to live with others despite our differences and to belong to one another. Moreover, in the letter His Holiness Pope Francis to young economists and entrepreneurs worldwide of the economy of Francesco, and in his encyclical letter Laudato Si, the Pope emphasized that everything is interconnected. So we need to correct models of growth incapable of guaranteeing respect for the environment, openness to life, concern for the family, social equality, and the rights of future generations. So the urgent challenge to protect our common home includes a concern to bring the whole human family together to seek a sustainable and integral development. If everything is related, then the soundness of a society's institutions has consequences for the environment and the quality of human life. In this sense, social ecology is necessarily institutional and gradually extends to the whole of society, from the primary social group, that is the family, to the wider local, national, and international communities. He also highlighted that ecological education can take place in a variety of settings, such as schools or in families, but a primary role is given to families. In the family, we first learn how to show love and respect for life, respect for the local ecosystem, and care for all creatures. In the family, we receive an integral education, which enables us to grow harmoniously in personal maturity. It's also where we learn the importance of genuine gratitude, to control our greed, and to ask forgiveness when we have caused harm. These aspects help to create a culture of shared life and respect for our surroundings. But what is the relationship between the family and Franciscan spirituality? Assisi is for sure a symbol of fraternity and solidarity, two key behavioral inclinations and social attitudes, along with gratuitousness and gift, we learn in our family, and which are vital to serve and promote the common good in society. And one last point, in the words of Luigino Bruni, in order to be credible, the prophecy of the family today must take the form of children, therefore worrying about future generations, in the form of the economy, in the sense of sharing, inclusiveness, and communion. Because both children and the economy represent nothing more than the ordinary life of each and every one of us, which is the only place where prophecy blossoms and grows. But I don't want to go further on. Time has come to leave the floor to Monsignor Sorrentino, who has recently published a book in Italian called Crisi come grazia per una nuova primavera della Chiesa. The English translation would be Crisis as Grace for a New Spring of the Church. So thank you, Bishop Sorrentino, for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you all for the opportunity you give me to give this contribution to the theme, so interesting and inspiring. So, have I already the floor to speak, or must
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so, I would like to start from the very place where I live, here in Assisi, in this building, which is the bishop's residence, where 80 centuries ago, the young Francis stripped of his garments until the nakedness to express his new life, a life of conformity to God and also of love for the others. I think you all know the story of the narrative of Saint Francis, as he had his conversion at the age of 25 years, and he was a son of a very, very rich family. It was the family of a businessman, and he understood after 25 years. So this is encouraging for young people in search of the sense of the life. After 25 years, he understood that he could not have his joy in money, and the only joy for him was to have a new sense of life, searching this joy in the gospel, and a new attitude towards God and the others. So I would like to start from some painting. One of them is very, very known, is the one you have in your site, this famous fresco of Giotto that is in Basilica, in Upper Basilica of Assisi, which recalls the event. You see two kinds of people facing each other. From one side, you see the father, Pietro di Bernardone, who has already taken the garments and the money that young Francis renounces. And you see from the other side, the young Francis and the bishop who covers him, and he, Francis, with the arms lifted up to the hand of God to say his new life. And the words he spoke in that occasion were no more my earthly father Pietro di Bernardone, but our Father in heaven. And you see the bishop who covers him with his cloak. And there are here two kinds of people, two kinds of choices, two kinds of worlds, also from the economic point of view, because Father Pietro di Bernardone was a businessman, and the problem he had with his son was really an economic problem, because he wanted to increase his wealth and expected that his son was his heir and was very, very involved in the ideals of the family. Francis understood that his way was another way. So you find here two kinds of people, but also a crisis of a family. We are speaking here of the importance of the family. You have here a family in crisis. And the problem of this family, which gives problems to the family, is really the way the father and the son look at the money. So you could say, in this case, renouncing the money, Francis renounces economy. No, this would be not correct. Francis inaugurated a new way to look at the money, at the function of the money, at the function of the wealth in society. So two ways of looking at the richness, at wealth, are starting in this painting, in this story. But I asked to look at the second painting, which is in the Sala della Spogliazione, in the room of renunciation we have here in the building residence. This is another perspective, which is complementary to the first one. In the first one, Giotto has, so to say, a vertical mystic, putting in evidence that the reason of the choices of Francis comes from above, comes from God. Here you find a new perspective. Of course, it's the same of the first one, but with a complementary aspect. You find the two kinds of world, two kinds of family, but in this painting, the family is the family of Francis and the bishop who meet each other. In the first one, the bishop has covered Francis. In the second one, Francis goes in the arms of the bishop, and the bishop makes a judgment and welcomes him. And in this way, you find that there is a choice, a social choice. The bishop makes an unpopular judgment, saying, I am for Francis. I am for the way of looking at the richness, at wealth that is of Francis. And so I make my choice. The bishop in this case belongs to the public power of society, so to say, because in the Middle Age, the bishops had also this possibility of judge people, at least when they were consecrated people. So you find here a choice of society where and to whom must I give my consent, and what have I to renounce? The bishop makes a choice, and you find here a new kind of family which arises from this choice of friends of the bishop. So a family which is in crisis because of money, and a family which arises, a new family, a spiritual family, if you want, but a real family, because church, in our experience, in our faith, is really a family. A family is a supernatural family, a spiritual family, but it's a family. And what does brings in the life of Francis and the bishop and the church, and in the history? If you give me the other painting, which is you find here another interesting painting, which in the Sala della Spogliazione, in the room of renunciation, is on the opposite wall. What are you looking there? This is the little church, very, very little, and that the Benedictines gave to St. Francis, the Portiuncola, we call it the Portiuncola, which now is in the big Basilica of Santa Maria degli Angeli. How the painter, the artist interpreted this historical event. It's very, very interesting. You see this small church. This is not only a church as a place of prayer. You see also angels on a ladder who come down and go up. So it's also and first is a place of prayer. But you see Francis with other people, are consecrated people, Benedictine and Franciscan, and also a family. You see some parents, you see a little boy who look at Francis. What is the program, the iconographic program of this room? You look at St. Francis, who has renounces to his family, his own family, who has rediscovered the church's family, and now he is generating a new family, people who come to him to say, let us shape a new society on the value, the real value of wealth, of money, which is the value of solidarity, the way of gratuitousness, and so on. So a new life starts, a new society starts, a new economy starts, a new society. Please give me the last painting of the, okay, last one. This is the biggest one, and it's the famous gift St. Francis obtained from Jesus. You see Jesus is in Mary, St. Francis, and look how Francis is joyful here. In the first painting, you have seen the young Francis who has renounced, and of course with the pain in the heart for having renounced his family. Now he is very, very joyful because he obtains something that is supernatural. It was the so-called pardon, the indulgence of Portiuncola, a particular mercy of God for everybody, and especially for the poor people of that time, because at that time, to receive the so-called indulgence of the church, people had to go to some shrines which were far away, and for the poor people this was quite impossible, and they wanted to receive here in Assisi for the poor people this abundant grace of God, mercy of God. And you see the poor Francis, who has nothing, has no more money, was no more a family, has become here like generating also of a supernatural wealth, which brings joy to the people, happiness to people. And with this happiness, you can go on and build your life also in the earthly things of the life. So it's for painting to explain how from this renouncing not of the economy, but of a way to look at the economy brings a new economy in the world. And you know that from this comes the Franciscan School of Economy, comes a new way also to be at the side of the poor man, a new economy, a family in crisis, and a family which is generated from this crisis. As I say in my book, crisis is a grace. It's a grace. So this crisis of the family of St. Francis brings to a new family and a new economy. Well, I thought it was very important to give you something of the atmosphere of this bishop residence, of this particularly inspiring Franciscan place, to give you, after, if I have more minutes, how many minutes I have, perhaps you can help me, how many minutes I have.
Yeah, you can go on.
I can
this
go.
other fan, yes.
Thanks. Well, I will give you some ideas that we can discuss afterwards in small themes, small sentences, small statements I make, which seem to me very, very important, starting from this atmosphere, from this horizon of St. Francis. First one, Loredana told already, and I want to stress it, there is an original sin, so to speak, of economy and economics. I would say this original sin is the forgetting of the etymological root of these words. And the etymological roots, as you recalled, is oikos, oikia. So economy and economics start from oikos, start from family, and it's important to rediscover this root if you want to have a good vision of economy and economics. First one. Second one, observed from this point of view of the family of the oikos, the so-called homo economicus, and is an expression very, very known in the history of economics and economy. The homo economicus appears immediately not as individualistic, but as person in relationship with other person. The homo economicus is homo oikonomicus, family nomicus, so to say, family nomicus. It's important to rediscover this root. Third statement, from this point of view of family nomicus, of family economy, from this point of view, we can derive not all the laws of economy and economics, of course, but some fundamental laws, which are very, very important for the whole construction of the economical science. First one, the principle love. You cannot understand family without love. Family starts when there is love among some members, a man, a woman, children, and all the other relatives, other parents, children, relatives. Love. Second, principle care. If the people in the family love each other, they take care. of each other. So the work inside a family is a work of care. I know the village work and care. I would say in the family, work is care and care is work. So work as care, not only work and care, two times two, but the two concepts are very, very involved in each other. Third one is important. In the family perspective, there is a special attention, concentration on the weak person. Everybody knows when in a family there are different children and one of them is ill, all the family concentrates on the ill person. So the weak person are in the family the point where all the family concentrates. So not only a care, a general care, but a concentrated care on the weak person. So this three law of a family economics must be also three laws of the economy and economics. This for us is a real great challenge. The fourth statement: the more the society gains or regains the principle family as a structuring principle, the more the social and political economy become sound. The more the society loses the principle family, the more the social and political economy become ill. It's important. There will be a long discussion on this. You remember that the French Revolution had a flag of three words: liberty, equality, and fraternity. But an economist who is now blessed, acknowledges blessed from the church, the blessed Giuseppe Toniolo. I had the fortune to study this economist. Used to say, we see when we look at the French Revolution and this flag, something that is very equivocal, where the people used to speak of fraternity in the light of equality and liberty, because the fraternity of the French Revolution was what Toniolo used to call the atomistic fraternity, where all the single people are looked alone and separated from the others. And this is for Toniolo and for the social doctrine of the church a mistake, because we don't know in the practice of our life a people who is totally separated from the others. There is no people who can exist without the others. And if you put the societies as an amount of people separated each one from the others, you have a sociological mistake, which brings also an economical mistake. So we must discover the family sense of everybody, and the family sense is that we are in relationship with the others, and not only a generical relationship, because in the family, I have a relationship with my father, with my mother, with my brethren, and everyone has his attitude, as his physiognomy. Everyone has his age, his culture, his illness. We are related to the others, but everyone is also difference. So it's important to rediscover what the social doctrine of the church calls the intermediate body. From the family, you find more families linked together, and from more families linked together, you build the society. If you make this mistake at the beginning, you will find mistakes at the end. at the end. So you have an economy which is no more capable to understand what is society and what is economy. Another statement is family and fraternity are both important because they look at different aspects of our relationship. The fraternity looks at the aspect of our equality and our dignity, which is the same for everybody. But family looks also at our equality in terms of differencing, with the temptation we have from on both sides. The temptation of a family is the familism. So you find castes, you find people who looks at our interests and forget the interests of the others. From on the side of fraternity, you find this temptation of an atomistic society. So family and fraternity together, fraternity in the family and family as starting of fraternity together with their differences and also their temptation to bring under control. Good. Another important statement. I try to say.
Bishop Sorrentino, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We run out of time. I'm sorry. Okay. If you can conclude this part, and maybe we can go back to it at the end of our conversation.
Okay. I conclude telling that from this way to look at society, we have also the importance of the society before the politics, the social, the civil society, so to say, which brings also to the civil economy. It's important that a society which starts from the family brings also to politics some important laws, and where these laws are disregarded, you have a society which doesn't function anymore and the economy which does function anymore. And to conclude all this, we can rediscover from the point of view of our reason, so we can discuss also with people we are not sharing our faith, but it's important also to give as Christian our contribution, specific contribution, because as in the life of St. Francis, to rediscover all this from the horizon of the transcendency and from the horizon of the gospel is very, very important as contribution. We don't think we have all the truth, but we think we have something very, very important for the truth of the society and of the economy, starting from the gospel and our religious experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Sorrentino, for your very inspiring thoughts. And now I'm really glad to give the floor to our second amazing speaker, Dalila De Rosa, who is also a friend of mine from my PhD experience in civil economy. So it's nice to have you with us. She will discuss the relationship between family and happiness according to the empirical evidence. Dalila, you can take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Loredana, and thank you for inviting me. And as Loredana was mentioning, I'm going to bring to your attention some evidence, and in particular empirical evidence on the relationship between happiness and the family. I would like to start with a statement, as the bishop was doing before. One of the statements that, at least in the past, was self-evident is that family is the cornerstone of the society. In the past, this was absolutely self-evident, but nowadays, with like many transformations related to family, this statement seems to no longer be self-evident. However, there are many important dimensions in which this statement can be supported. For sure, the first one is that without family, the human society risks extinction. Without new births and newborns, the human being risk the extinction, but also this is not the only important part of family within the society, but also there are many other dimensions and many other places in the society where family are particularly important. For instance, we know that family is an important economic actor. Many services and goods are produced within the family. So without families, part of economic wealth will be lost. But also care, the bishop was mentioning care and work. There is a lot of care within family, and this care sometimes is part of the welfare state and is substitution of welfare state. So without families, also for the finance of the nation, of the state, will be higher than they actually are. And also in the family there is attention. Also the bishop was saying to the weak person, the ill person. There is a lot to do in the family for social inclusion, and without family, society would experience a bigger and higher social exclusion. And last, and this is the point I will start my talk, is related to the happiness and psychological well-being of individual, because we know that without families, many individuals would experience higher loneliness and also psychological distress. And there are many, let's say, many evidence, empirical evidence and evidence in the literature that support this link between happiness and well-being. I will start from health and marriage, but also wealth and marriage. There are many evidence that support the idea that people who are married or who stay in a family live longer and healthier. They have an health premium. They live longer and stay healthier, but also they stay wealthier, because also the link between wealth, in economic terms, and marriage is widely recognized in the literature. People who are married or who stay in family, they can afford better housing, they can afford better food and services, and they report job advantages. For instance, there is an experiment to show that people in a company, is an experiment within a company, and people who work, married people who work in this company are higher productive than their unmarried counterpart. And this means that married people have better job position and they gain wage premium in terms of economic advantages. But also there are many linkages between happiness and psychological well-being and marriage, as we were mentioning. There is a lot of evidence in the literature that show how married people or cohabitants or people who live in a family are happier and more satisfied with life and with different dimensions of life. But not only they are more satisfied in terms of subjective well-being, but also in terms of psychological well-being, where for psychological well-being we mean a psychometric variable and psychometric construct which is related to optimism, to vitality, to self-esteem, but also to purpose in life. And there is a lot of evidence in the literature that show that married people or people who live in a family display a higher purpose in life and higher self-esteem. So it's not just related to subjective well-being and to happiness, but also to mental health. And also parental well-being is an important stream of research, and many scholars are focusing on the relation between parenthood and happiness. The question is, are parents parent happier? It depends, because on this topic there is very much debate ongoing, because some researchers found that parents are happier and more satisfied with life, but this evidence is not always true, because some other authors found that parents are happier and more satisfied with their first child, but then when it comes to the second child, this happiness level return to the previous level. And other authors find that actually the life satisfaction of parents is somehow crowded out by the lower satisfaction with financial situation, because everybody knows that when a newborn comes to the family, financial distress is experienced. So this somehow can crowd out the overall life satisfaction of parent. But all this evidence that I'm just summarize very briefly because of time, but all this evidence support the idea that family and married people are the right place where individual can flourish and where individual can reach a higher level of happiness and satisfaction, but not only subjective satisfaction, but as we were, I was mentioning, also economic satisfaction and economic advantage and health advantages. Always within this stream of research, so in a recent paper with Matteo Rizzoli, we try to disentangle how different family types and different family ties will affect some dimension of life, and we consider these family ties as according to different type of commitment, because we know that there are many form and many types of family, and not all the family react is exactly equal in terms of life satisfaction and different life domains. And we try to test whether stronger family ties represented by religious married couple or married couple with children who have beyond the personal commitment and the legal commitment also a spiritual commitment to our family would have an higher life satisfaction, or which type of higher life satisfaction. And we found that actually, yes, married subject with respect to single individual display higher probability of being satisfied with some dimension like health, relationship, and economic resources. Whereas a single individual display higher probability of being satisfied with leisure and work or job, but this is quite clear. But also an important result from this research is that religious commitment, which is represented by religious marriage, deepen the family bonds for married couples, and this is reflected in their higher probability of being satisfied with their life. So not only married individuals are more satisfied than unmarried, but religious married individuals are more satisfied than non-religious married individuals. And this is a quite, I guess, important issue to reflect on. And family and the pandemic, this is another, let's say, ongoing research with Matteo and others from and other co-authors. We were trying to investigate the relationship between happiness and family and family types, but also the quality of familiar relationship during the pandemic. And we submitted a survey collected from a US sample on which we were asking different daily life activities and the level level of happiness and other questions. And what we found, but this is an ongoing research, so I'm just showing you two figures, is that as the literature has shown, married couples are happier than unmarried individuals, so than single individuals. And this is true either before the pandemic than during the pandemic. So the difference between these two bars is statistically significant. So it's still true that married people are happier than unmarried, even during the pandemic. But what we were trying to measure is not only the difference between married and unmarried, but a kind of qualitative measure, a qualitative hint about the familiar relationship. And we all know that due to the pandemic, all the individuals were forced to stay at home, and those who were in a family, they're forced to spend more time with partner, with children, and within the family. Those who were single, they were forced to stay alone for a longer time span. So with this graph, I just want to show you the difference between these two groups. This group time increased is those whose time spent with partner has increased, whereas this group is related to those whose time spent with partner is decreased or at least equal. And we, as we can see, the level of happiness of those whose time is increased, whose time spent with partner is increased, is higher during the pandemic than the other group. And also the difference between the two bars is statistically significant. It means that basically those who spend more time with partners during the pandemic experience an higher level of happiness despite the fact that there was the pandemic. So the fact that these people stayed more at home and spend more time with a partner has contributed somehow to increase their level of happiness. Of course, this is just a first-hand analysis, and we will deep this. But just to conclude and to leave some time for the question, I would like to discuss two key message. I tried in a very short time to bring to your knowledge some empirical evidence that recognize family as a driver, important driver for flourishing, individual flourishing, but also happiness and life satisfaction. This is a fact, something that is empirical recognized, and it is true. So if we want to account for public happiness in terms of policies for public happiness, we can no longer ignore family is the most important cell of the society and as the cornerstone of the society. So before the bishop was mentioning a family crisis that lead to a new family, a new economy, and a reborn of the economy from this family crisis. And I would like to say that maybe if nowadays there is a crisis of the family, we can start from this crisis to build a new culture of family, where the family is again put at the center, in the corner, in a special position within the society. And this is just my final comment, and I guess we can start with the discussion.
Thank you, Dalida, for raising such relevant issues. And yes, now we can, of course, discuss. And I ask our first young discussant to intervene, Cesare Vergori. You have the floor and ask your question. Please be short and go directly to the point, okay? Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Loredana. Okay, my question, I'm Cesare, I'm an engineer and I work as a consultant. My question is for the Archbishop Sorrentino. And as we have seen, the family is the fundamental cell of society. And despite the multiple difficulties it encounters in its historical realization, remains the fundamental community when man's most intimate structure originates, the place in which his pursued blossom. However, today, there are two main problems that make it difficult to give meaning to the marriage or family according to the Christian perspective. The first one is the anthropological error that is related to the non-recognition of the ontological definition of man as female and male. And the second problem, closely related to the first one, concerns the positivistic view of reality that have destroyed the symbolic episteme, or the symbolic knowledge. These two problems, in a certain way, have narrowed each person's horizon of hope and deprived the marital union of its sacramental meaning. Therefore, given these two problems, how to propose, in particular to new generation or younger people, the Christian marriage or the joy to create a new family as a value or a possible choice that allows you to fully realize yourself as a person through the sincere gift of self, exercising the motherhood and fatherhood as a result of the duality given by the Creator to human being from the beginning, and how to consider a new child within the family and the society, not as a statistical data or a commercial desire, but rather as a gift, fruit of conjugal love, the realization of the common good of the family, and the reason for hope in the future. Taking a long story short, the newborns are a value for our society and not a constraint to the economic development or a danger for the environment. And my life is not confined only to my career. So I hope to be clear enough, and thank you very much.
Cesare, thank you for your question. I would say that in the book Loredana mentioned, or Dalia mentioned, the crisis as a grace, I speak to try to give an horizon of the actual crisis of society over a triangle of crisis. The first angle of crisis, the crisis of thought, of values. The second one is the crisis of relationship at every level. The third one is the crisis of solidarity from the ethical point of view. And I think that it's in three angles of crisis, you can find also the crisis of the family. How to propose the value of the family is the same question, or another, is an analogical question, how to propose the value of the truth in a time of the crisis of truth, how to propose the value of relationship in a time of a crisis of relationship, how to propose the value of solidarity in a time of a crisis of solidarity. I will say two things which, as a Christian, I think we must have must think very important. First one, think of the value of our reason. As Christian, we are disciples of Jesus as the Logos, so as the reason of God, and we know that there is the reason in everybody which creates links among the people. So we must highlight what is common. For instance, what Dalila made with Professor Rizzoli, this evidence survey of what the family is something that can bring in our proposal something common. And we can say, look, if the evidence says that the married people who live this way are happier, this is something that can at least be discussed. So we can stress the importance of the recent themes, recent issues to build a bridge towards people in a time of crisis. Second one, which is more important for us, is the witness. The witness. This was at the first beginning of Christianism. Was the secret. The secret. People looking at these small groups of people who finally were very, very happy, and they say, look how they love each other. And so little small groups were capable, with centuries of course, with persecutions of course, with difficulties of course, to give a very great testimony which convinced the society, and we had a Christian society. So reason from one side, witness from other side. And it's important. In my book, I make very practical suggestion of how the church for a new spring could renovate itself through this small group of people who witness love, and so witness also family.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so Maria Jose, now you can ask your question. Please go directly to the point. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Loredana. Thank you all for organizing and participate in this conversation. I want to pose this query to Archbishop Sorrentino, please. When we consider the family as the relational core where and within which we learn to love, to care, to cooperate, it is curious that at some point in our lives, this experience of loving, of caring, of cooperating demand an effort from us. Why is it that when we interact in different environments, we leave this learning behind instead of further developing it? Besides, often schools witness bullying behaviors, workplaces, widespread exploitation. All over the world, migrants suffer discrimination, and our entire earth pales under spoliation. This and many other forms of violence ultimately end interacting and pervading the domestic sphere, which can host violence, and as we have witnessed, this violence disproportionately affect women and girls all over the world. What is it with us humans that we have not been able to protect this most intimate and at the same time social source of relations? And how can we promote a change that don't exert any force in the domestic sphere? And by force, I mean not trying to implement whatever action intended to define or to try to rule how a family should be understood, but instead trying to foster a spiritual revolution, a communion that expands beyond but encompassing faith in its multiple cultural forms. Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Maria Jose. I would say that family is made from human beings. And in human beings, you find everything. You find the positive aspect, you find the negative aspect. And as you have for the single person wish and pray for a conversion, so you must also wish and pray for a conversion of a family. I started with the experience of St. Francis. In his family, he experienced the violence from his own father because he wanted to go his own way and was impeded from his father. So you find everywhere and in every person these two aspects, and this is the secret and the challenge of our journey in the history and in our own life. And this is also the contribution of the faith, of the prayer, of the conversion. So what I say to Cesare before is also important for your questions. We must, from one side, try to give reasons for an ideal of family, and from other side, we must bring in the struggle of the history our witness. The more saints we have also in families, the more this witness is important also for the conversion of family. And now, in a time of crisis, we must also take conscience, have knowledge that this is also a great time of crisis for the family. So all you mentioned are elements of this crisis, but are the same elements of a crisis of the ethic, of religion, of humanity, the human being who is now in crisis. But as Christian, we say we are not discouraged from that, because we know that we have a Savior, and Jesus will bring us also this salvation today. But this passes through the struggle of our conversion, of our life, of our sanctity.
Okay, thank you, Maria Jose, and of course to Bishop Sorrentino for answering the question. And now I will give the floor to Bernd Appelhans. Thank you. You can ask your question.
Yes, thanks very much for this input. It has been quite thought-inspiring. And yeah, my name is Bernd. I'm from Germany and I work in the field of education. So this is a topic that is very close to my heart. And Dalila, you have looked at the relationship between family, marriage, and health, for example. You have looked at well-being, psychological well-being, and you have also looked at wealth. And so I want to shift the focus on education, which is one of the primary drivers of economic prosperities for individuals and for the families, also for social mobility and including also of the poor, and economic chances for everyone. So my question is, what is the role of the family? What is the state of the research? How does it affect children and the educational performance of students? How they grow up in a family, for example, with two parents or just one parent? What do you know? What is the evidence in this regard?
Thank you, Ben. It's a very interesting question also because I didn't mention the stream of education and family, but it's something very important as well. And well, there is also evidence and empirical evidence on this side. First of all, well, parents' education and parents' level of education and the socioeconomic status of the family are two of the most important driver of school achievement for the children, but not only achievement, but also attainment of the children and level of dropout. But it's not just a matter of socioeconomic status and the parents' level of education, but also of type and style of the family. There is some research on which compare intact family with non-intact family, and for non-intact family, the literature mean single parent family or stepwise family, where children grow up with one parent or with one parents and an enlarged family. And this evidence says basically that these children experience a disadvantage in terms both of achievement and attainment, school attainment, but also they experience higher rate of dropout, of school dropout. And I guess that the topic of education is especially important now after the pandemic, because I mean, we all know that during the pandemic school were stopped, especially I mean in Italy for a very long time, and actually the inequality in education is supposed to rise because of the pandemic and this long stop from the school. And of course, family who are who had more time to spend, we go back to the time spent with partner or with children. The family who had the time to devote to children and to the care of children, especially with relation to school work and education, these children will have of course in school advantage with respect to those children whose family are in a low socioeconomic status, or they had no time to invest with their children because of single parenthood or wherever. So I guess it's something very important, especially in relation to inequality in education, because this will rise and a very big inequality in the future, and also in the future career of the children when they will grow up, of course. And so thank you for this question. It was a very important topic.
Thanks for your answer and all the insight.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to our wonderful speakers and discussants for these very stimulating issues that you have raised. Fortunately, we have run out of time, so I will invite Matteo Rizzoli for the conclusions to take the floor.
So thanks. Can you hear me? Okay. Thanks a lot. It was worth to take 7 more minutes than planned. Really, I think there is coherence between what we saw. I mean, really between the introduction of Loredana on the teaching of the church, and then we went back to the roots of the Franciscan tell story of the real story that was so much rooted in a history, the one of St. Francis, that we all care and we have to learn from. And then back to the reality of the data with Dalila, that shows that the proposal of the church, with the anthropological proposal about the family, which is not an exclusive idea of the Catholic Church. It's I mean, the way the Catholic Church proposes the family is shared with most of the cultures, and most of the religions share the same view of what is a family and what is good in supporting the family. And this proposal is just good for the people, and we have the data to prove that. It's not like an ideological statement. Is in the data. Just look at the data and you see that this proposal works for people. So that's and this is great. This is a great message to take home. So thanks a lot to everybody. So now we have a circle time. So whoever wants to stay a little bit longer and join us a conversation. So I know there are people looking and attending the meeting on YouTube. So I ask some of us who are also on YouTube to post there the link to Zoom so they can join us in our webinar on Zoom if they want to participate to the circle time. The circle time is just a moment in which we will discuss for 20-30 minutes more about these topics among us. So I thanks again the Archbishop Sorrentino and Dalila De Rosa for being with us. Thanks, it was very important this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably we want to remind the next appointment of the School of Civil Happiness on the 24th. We will have another wonderful conversation with Professor Elena Marullo from the University of Lisbon. And this time we'll talk about happiness, education, and relational goods. So don't miss this other important appointment next week on the 24th of July. Thank you.